She only came for a routine blood draw. When she woke up, she felt pain she couldn't explain. The nurse looked terrified, and the truth was worse than any nightmare. Layla Brooks blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights of the Chicago clinic, her head pounding like a hammer inside her skull. She tried to move, but the sticky paper gown clung to her sweat-soaked skin. Confusion spiraled through her. She was only supposed to be here for a simple blood test, a quick way to earn some cash for her tuition. A nurse hovered nearby, exchanging uneasy glances with the doctor. Their smiles were tight, forced, and Layla felt the weight of their silence pressing down on her. She forced herself to sit up, the room spinning around her. "What happened?" she demanded, voice shaking. The doctor cleared his throat, avoiding her eyes. "There's been a mix-up," he said quietly. "You underwent a procedure that wasn't meant for you." Her heart seized with terror. What did he mean? Panic and anger burst inside her chest. How could this happen? Who could have made such a mistake? The sterile walls closed in as Layla realized her life was about to change forever. She looked around, trying to understand where she was and what had gone wrong. The clinical smell was sharp and cold, and the dull beeping of machines made her feel even more trapped. Her hands trembled as she reached out for the nurse. "Please, tell me what's happening." The nurse swallowed hard, her eyes flickering with guilt. "Layla, there was an error with your procedure. It's complicated, but it's serious." She hesitated, then whispered, "You received a treatment that wasn't supposed to be for you." Confusion turned to horror. Layla's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of memory from earlier. The blood test, the waiting room, the sudden darkness before waking up here. "What kind of treatment?" she whispered, dread tightening her throat. The doctor stepped closer, his face pale and drawn. "You were part of a fertility procedure by mistake. An embryo was implanted in you." The words hit her like a blow. She gasped, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You're telling me I'm pregnant? Without my consent?" Layla's world spun again, but this time the nausea wasn't from medicine. It was from shock, betrayal, and fear. How could her body be changed without her permission? She clenched her fists, anger rising alongside the terror. This was no longer just a medical mistake. It was a violation. Her voice grew stronger, shaking the room. "I need answers. Now." The nurse and doctor exchanged uneasy looks. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same. Layla's life before the clinic had been a constant struggle, but it was hers to control. She juggled 2 jobs while attending graduate school, determined to build a better future for herself and her mother. Her mother, Marlene, had been left paralyzed after a car accident years ago, and Layla took care of her every day, sacrificing sleep, social life, and sometimes even meals. The small apartment they shared in a rough Chicago neighborhood was humble but full of love. Layla often found herself sitting by the window, watching the city move on without her. Her dreams of becoming a social worker felt distant, but she refused to give up. "I'm fighting for us," she would tell her mother, her voice steady even when exhaustion weighed heavy. Marlene smiled through pain and weakness, always encouraging Layla to keep pushing forward. "You've got strength in you, baby," she would say. "Don't let this world tell you what you can't do." Despite the daily hardships, Layla was proud of her achievements. Scholarships helped pay tuition, but every penny counted. That's why the paid blood test at the clinic had seemed like a simple way to earn some much-needed cash. A quick in-and-out procedure with no risks, or so she thought. Her friends at school didn't know the full story. They saw her as focused and determined. But behind closed doors, the weight of responsibility pressed down hard. Some nights she stayed up late, researching family support programs, while other nights she cried quietly, afraid she wouldn't be able to keep it all together. The community around her was tight-knit, but faced constant challenges: underfunded schools, police harassment, and systemic racism that limited opportunities for young black women like Layla. But here she was, navigating these obstacles with a fierce determination to rise above. Now, all of that felt like it was slipping away. The clinic's mistake threatened not just her body, but everything she had worked so hard to build. The life she'd planned, her education, her mother's care, her future, was suddenly clouded with uncertainty. Marlene reached out and took Layla's hand, her eyes filled with quiet strength. "Whatever happens, we face it together. You're not alone in this." That simple promise gave Layla a flicker of hope, but deep inside, she knew the battle was just beginning. The sterile walls of the clinic seemed to close in around Layla as she struggled to process the doctor's words. "A software error," they said. "A mix-up in patient files that led to an embryo being implanted in her without her consent." The reality was staggering. She was pregnant, carrying a child she never agreed to, a child meant for someone else entirely. Her voice trembled as she confronted the nurse. How could this happen? How do you accidentally perform something so invasive on the wrong person? The nurse's eyes darted nervously, unable to meet Layla's gaze. The doctor tried to explain, fumbling with medical jargon. During a system update, patient codes were overwritten. You were mistakenly brought to the procedure room instead of the blood draw room. The team followed the system's instructions. His words felt hollow, mechanical, lacking any real empathy. Tears welled in Layla's eyes. "You didn't ask me. I never consented. I'm a virgin. How can you just do this to me?" Her voice cracked, a mixture of rage and despair. The violation was not just physical, but a deep betrayal of trust. Her hand shook as she demanded answers. The medical team offered compensation, legal counsel, promises to cover all expenses. But Layla wasn't interested in money. She wanted justice. She wanted her life back. Outside, the clinic's waiting room buzzed with oblivious patients, unaware of the trauma unfolding behind closed doors. Layla's world had been shattered in a single afternoon. The pain was raw, and the fight ahead was daunting. As she stood to leave, clutching her belongings, the weight of what had happened settled heavily on her. This wasn't just a medical error. It was an assault on her autonomy, a stark reminder of the ways black women's bodies are often disregarded. Layla vowed silently, amidst the storm of emotions, that she would not be silenced. The fight for her dignity, her choice, and her future was just beginning. David Hunter stared out over the glittering New York skyline from his corner office, the weight of the clinic's call sinking in. His late wife's final wish was supposed to be honored through a carefully planned surrogacy. Instead, a devastating mistake had turned his world upside down. A black woman in Chicago was carrying the embryo meant for their child. Frustration and grief battled inside him. The clinic's negligence had shattered not only his dreams, but someone else's life, too. His assistant's cautious voice broke through his thoughts, reminding him of the legal and public relations nightmare unfolding. David wasn't a man used to losing control, but this was different. This was about more than money or reputation. It was about legacy, love, and responsibility. Without hesitation, he booked a flight to Chicago. He needed to meet Layla Brooks, the woman who had become the unexpected bearer of his wife's genetic legacy. not to threaten or demand, but to understand, to listen, to find out what she wanted. As his private jet touched down, the tables had shifted. The power was no longer solely his. The story belonged to Layla now, and David knew he had to earn her trust. The city's cold winds couldn't chill the urgency of what lay ahead, a meeting that would change both their lives forever. Layla's world grew darker as the pressure mounted. Lawyers flooded her phone with calls, hospital officials pressed for agreements, and social media erupted with rumors and judgments. Everywhere she turned, she faced whispers that cut deeper than any wound. "She's just after money," some said. "Another poor woman trying to cash in." At school, sideways glances and hushed conversations followed her every step. Even her mother felt the sting of suspicion from neighbors. The racism embedded in the system was clear. No one wanted to believe her truth or respect her pain. David Hunter's offers of support were generous, but complicated. Layla knew money couldn't erase the violation or the public scrutiny. "You don't get what it means to be me here," she told him one evening, her voice raw with exhaustion. Determined not to be silenced, Layla sought out a fierce black female lawyer from the South Side, someone who understood the fight she faced on every level. "They've underestimated you," her new attorney said firmly. "We're going to make them pay. For you, and for every woman who's been ignored." Together, they began unraveling the clinic's history of negligence and cover-ups, exposing the deep-rooted corruption and systemic racism that allowed such a mistake to happen, and go unpunished for too long. Layla wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for justice. Layla sat across from David Hunter in a tense conference room, the air thick with unspoken emotions. Lawyers on both sides pushed settlements and non-disclosure agreements, trying to close the case quickly and quietly. But Layla's resolve was unwavering. "You want my silence?" she challenged, her voice steady. "You'll have to fight for it." David, stripped of his usual confidence, looked at her not as a CEO, but as a man broken by loss and burdened by guilt. "This was never your burden," he said quietly. "I'm truly sorry." Outside, the media storm was growing. Layla's story spread across the country and into the UK and Canada, igniting protests and conversations about medical racism and consent. Her fight became more than personal. It was a rallying cry for thousands of black women whose voices had long been ignored. The fertility clinic faced investigations, lawsuits, and public outrage. Safety protocols were overhauled, and the company was forced to answer for its negligence. Layla chose her path forward, with courage and clarity, deciding what to do with her pregnancy on her own terms. David pledged full support, respecting her choices without pressure. At home, Marlene looked at her daughter with pride and tears in her eyes. "You turned their mistake into a movement," she said softly. "You made sure no one else suffers like this." For Layla, justice wasn't just about the court's verdict. It was about reclaiming her body, her story, and her future. Months had passed since the storm of lawsuits, media frenzy, and courtroom battles. Layla Brooks stood in the bustling hallways of her university, no longer just a struggling grad student, but a symbol of resilience and strength. Students and faculty alike looked up to her, not just for what she had endured, but for how she had transformed her pain into purpose. She was invited to speak at conferences, community events, and panels across Chicago, New York, and even London. Her message was clear: Black women deserve respect, autonomy, and justice in every corner of society, especially in medicine. Layla carried the weight of countless voices that had been ignored, and she vowed to make sure their stories were heard. Though her life was still a patchwork of challenges, balancing school, motherhood, and healing, Layla felt a renewed sense of control. She had chosen her path and owned her story. The scholarship fund David Hunter had quietly set up in her name was helping young Black women pursue careers in medicine and social work, planting seeds of change where it was desperately needed. One crisp autumn afternoon, Layla visited her mother, Marlene, at their small apartment. The sunlight filtered through the worn curtains as Marlene smiled softly, her wheelchair parked nearby. "We're still here," she said, squeezing Layla's hand. "They didn't break us." Outside, the city pulsed with life, its struggles and hopes intertwined. Layla looked out the window, her heart steady and hopeful. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in a long time, she saw possibility. Her fight had sparked a movement, her voice had shattered silence, and her story was just beginning. She was no longer a victim of a cruel mistake. She was a beacon of hope for her community, and a testament to the power of resilience and justice. The future was hers to shape, and she would never let it be taken away again.